Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Cyberpunk 2076 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now we are pairing this with 16 gigabytes of RAM. We are running the game currently at the lowest in-game graphics settings, except we are running it at the native 1080p resolution with the in-game benchmark. We are also at the 15 watt TDP here. Now the level of performance that you're seeing here is absolutely abysmal. This was exactly what I was expecting at the native resolution, even at the very lowest graphics settings, because this game has always been very demanding since the moment that it launched. And of course, unfortunately, this system cannot do this at 1080p, but it does support FSR. Now it is FSR 1.0, so it is the worst version of FSR, but it does have something interesting going for it in the sense that it has an ultra performance preset, which was something that I thought was only in FSR 2.0, at least based off of the slides that I've seen of it. And I couldn't find this information anywhere online, but by going off of the information that I know about FSR 2.0, if it's anything like that, then the ultra performance mode is running at essentially 33% resolution. And just as a comparison, performance mode runs at 50% resolution. And if we look at what setting FSR to that ultra performance mode does, it does improve things pretty dramatically, at least at the 15 watt TDP here, in the sense that it is a lot smoother than where we were at before, where before it really was a slideshow. We are now getting some ranges that some people would consider to be a lot more playable, at least based off of the in-game benchmark. We will be taking a look at actual gameplay a little bit later down in the video, but for right now we're using the benchmark for comparison's sake. And as you can see here, overall the performance that we are getting is vastly improved. Though the 1% lows aren't meteorically higher, it is making a noticeable difference, especially because now everything does look a lot smoother. Like if you compare the two, this might as well just be the greatest gaming experience ever. Obviously, if you actually jump into the game and try to play like this, it's not exactly going to be a great time, but it is a vast improvement, though you would hope so if we are actually running at 33% resolution. Now, raising the TDP to 25 watts does absolutely nothing to improve the performance at the full 1080p resolution. Really, you'd have to be on severe copium to really think that this was actually going to end up doing anything to improve the performance. This is just way too bad of an experience, but I'm throwing this in here just for comparison's sake, and also so you can see how big of a resolution drop ends up happening when you do use FSR in its most aggressive setting, because we're going to be taking a look at the ultra performance running at 25 watts after this. And I have to say that the drop in resolution is very noticeable with that ultra performance mode, though considering if it is, again, I'm not 100% sure what the actual resolution scaling of it is. I could not find that information online anywhere, but at least from what I gathered, just from what I've seen of FSR 2.0, it should be 33% resolution. And if that's the case, I'm kind of impressed considering it is only 33% resolution, though this is a severe hit to the overall quality of the image. Everything just looks super fuzzy, and in general, this setting, I almost feel like they threw it in here just to be able to get playable performance on certain systems, but outside of that, I really can't realistically think anyone would really want to play a game like this. The main reason I'm using it is because it's almost one of the only ways to actually get a decent experience out of this game, because again, we're running at 1080p, but it's 33% of 1080p, which means we are running at a minuscule resolution here. But you can see at the 25 watt TDP, we are at a 1% low of 30 and averages that are at 47, though there are still major stutters that you will see throughout the experience, so the 1% lows are going to drop in general, but it is a vast improvement over where we were at native. And with that being said, 30 watts also not able at all to salvage the native 1080p experience. Again, completely expected, though it's kind of funny to just see these temperatures considering the FPS that we're getting. This is just a ridiculous setting to try to play this game at. It's not worth it at all, but again, here mostly just for comparison's sake and so that you can again see the huge drop in the visuals. And of course, you can see that here as we run through with the 30 watt TDP, this time with FSR set to the ultra performance mode. And you'll see that overall, while our averages look really solid, it's those 1% lows that still continue to struggle, and it's going to be pretty much a constant thing throughout all of this. We're pretty much much pumping as much juice as this system can handle realistically. And while playing this game, it was going up into the 90 degrees. So it was a really demanding situation, and overall it made the experience really rough to try to play. In general, it was just rough all around, just doing all of the benchmarks and trying to get something even remotely doable here. But let's jump on into a bit of the campaign just so that you can see what the performance was like, just trying to struggle my way through it. And here you could see that with the 1080p resolution and FSR set to the ultra performance mode with the lowest in-game graphics settings and the 30-watt TDP, we are getting a reasonable enough experience, though it's nothing amazing. Our 1% lows are decent enough, our averages are decent enough, but the level of FSR ghosting that is going on here is just kind of ridiculous. I don't know if that's going to be as noticeable to you on the video as it is to me just actually playing the game, but while I was playing it, the edges of pretty much everything had this soft ghosting effect that was just around pretty much everything. Specifically though, you'd notice it with like moving objects more than anything else. It's just like if I panned the camera, I could see it a bit on like certain objects, but when it was an object that was moving itself, like a person moving and I'm also moving, the ghosting would be pretty brutal. So in general, you can get this game to be playable on here. You just need to be pushing a lot of wattage into the chip, and you're gonna be have to be willing to take a huge hit in terms of resolution. And of course, just for fun, I decided to just try it out with 900p and the FSR resolution set to ultra performance. So we were running at 33% of 900p, and overall the performance that we were getting here was decent enough. Only the 1% lows really saw absolutely no uplift, so I'm guessing at this point we're just running into a straight up CPU bottleneck or something, because the GPU is pretty much fully loaded the whole time. It's the CPU that has to be holding this back in some way, at least in terms of the 1% lows, because you know we are now running at such a low resolution that most of the load has to be getting put onto the CPU. At least this is the most amount of load that the CPU will end up having. And again, you will see that the GPU isn't fully utilized, but it's practically maxed out the whole time, so I'm guessing it's just the CPU that's the limiting factor here. But I could be completely wrong about that. But all I can really say is that overall the experience of trying to play this game on here is rough, because you really need to get into the really aggressively low FSR settings to get this to be actually consistent. And the biggest issue is just the fact that the 1% lows take major hits constantly, and those major hits will make the overall gaming experience not great. Now, I'm glad to see that the game is at least at a much better state than where it was at launch, though overall I think there's still fundamental flaws with Cyberpunk that kind of just hold it back from actually being anything even remotely like The Witcher 3. It's one of those things where if it was by any other studio, I'd be like, this was a pretty good game, but the fact that it was CD Projekt Red and they were making a lot of major promises and actual promises, this wasn't just community copium, so this was things that they were promising. I mean, like the demos that they were showing and everything weren't even real essentially. So what that ended up kind of just doing is, you know, creating this situation where we got a game that on its own is pretty decent. It's not amazing. I mostly just hate the cringe dialogue, but it's decent enough on its own. It's just having to live up to the legacy of The Witcher 3 is tough, especially when you drop the ball this hard. You're like, this is more in line with like an action game than anything that even resembles a true RPG. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.